Welcome to this Urban Lunch Talk, which is organized by UPI Urban Europe. This is the very first webinar in the series, as you just heard, discussing urban dilemmas, and today about creating and using inclusive public spaces. UPI Urban Europe, that's a European hub for research and innovation to address urban challenges. It's a platform to create, combine, discuss, and make available knowledge and evidence for sustainable urban solutions. And I am Sissi Askvall. I'm the secretary of a non-profit called, sorry, I guess you can't see me, but just a moment, here I am. So I'm Sissi Askvall. I'm the Secretary General of VA, Public and Science, and that's a non-profit based here in Sweden, aiming at promoting dialogue and openness between the public and scientists. And I will facilitate this webinar together with the co-moderator, Caroline Wrangsten. Who are you, Caroline?
Hi, Sissi, thank you. It's funny because we're in the same room.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I helped bring these webinars together with the JPI Urban Europe team, and I'm running the machinery here today. So it's me who types in the chat room, for example. Yeah, otherwise I'm an urban geographer, and this is my favorite subject. So I'm very excited today.
Yeah, and I'm very excited that you are with me and helping me out with the technology, which is much needed, but at least everyone can see me now. I'm thankful for that. So the purpose of this webinar is to make project results useful for cities and for their stakeholders, synthesize research, and of course widen UPI Europe's reach, but also help making sense of the urban dilemmas that are facing European cities. As I said, this is the first in a series of 4 webinars to take place now in December and January. The schedule for today: we will meet with 3 invited panelists who will share different perspectives on urban public spaces and introduce good examples of public spaces being developed and co-created by cities, citizens, and different stakeholders. And after that, we will discuss together. And there are several ways in which everyone can take part. You can raise your hand. You see there's a small sign or icon of a hand. And that's how you can engage in the discussion. You can also give comments by using the chat. You see the little cloud symbolizing the chat. You can also participate in polls that we will display later on. And there are also the possibility of asking questions through the Q&A whenever you like during the session. So you simply press the icon for what you would like to do. And if you experience any technical issues, so please do let us know by using the chat. And also if there are words that you don't recognize and don't really understand, just tell us using the chat and we try to find out what it's all about. So let's get started. Of course, first of all, we are very curious who you are, the ones who have now joined this seminar. So I would invite you all to participate in a poll. So we want to know what kind of people are out there around Europe. And as you can see the poll now on the screen, we want to ask you, you are participating in probably in a certain role. You see the different alternatives to choose from. So I invite you all now to fill out what you feel most comfortable of being as participating in this seminar. So please go ahead and just press the alternative you prefer. So are you a city official, a business representative, NGO representative, as I am, a politician, citizen, ordinary citizen, researcher, student, or something else? Of course, you could have certain roles. I guess we are all citizens, but press the alternative you think is the primarily cause while you are participating. Okay, so I think we can start looking at the results. So who are here? So we have some business representatives, NGOs, and researchers. I'm a bit curious about those people stating that there are others. Would you care to just write something in the chat and telling what kind of capacity you are in? So no politicians and no ordinary citizens, or citizens only, maybe I should say, but city officials, business representatives, NGO representatives, researchers, and those others. Who are you out there? Research and Innovation Officer in GPI Urban Europe. Managing Board, Jonas Bylund. Welcome, Jonas. And here's also a civil servant, state authority official. And how many participants are we? That's a good question. If we count together for different alternatives, we will get a view. Maybe not everyone has participated in the poll, but I would think that we are about 35, 40 people in all participating at this point. So thank you so much. We will soon meet with our invited panelists. I would just want to explain a little bit more about the dilemma approach that we are using. An urban dilemma, it's defined as two or more competing goals or stakeholder interests that bear the risk of failing to achieve the aims because implementing one strategy might hamper or prevent the achievement of the other. And some people mean that public space is at risk. And today's dilemma is about how to develop inclusive public spaces, ideally public spaces that are really attractive to all. And of course, this requires balancing of different needs in different groups and also catering for safety and security concerns without excluding certain groups. So how can cities provide those multifunctional public places that serve the purposes and needs of all groups of society? That's what we would like to discuss with our panelists. And I would like to introduce you to Katarina Kristianova. She's an architect working with urban planning as a researcher at the Slovak University of Technology in Bratislava. And you have also worked with city planning at the municipality of Bratislava. Hi, Katarina. Here in Sweden, we love to talk. Hi. In Sweden, we love to talk about the weather. And today it's rather foggy and gray here in Stockholm. So what's the weather like in Bratislava?
Yes, hello, nice to meet you. The weather.
The weather. Yes,
yes, the weather is very, very misty, very wet, very cold. So people are not on the streets and they just walk through public spaces and then don't use them and go to hide in buildings.
Thank you. I would also say hi to Yvonne Franz. You're an urban geographer from Germany, but you're now based in Vienna, Austria, working as a researcher and a teacher at the University of Vienna. And you're also connected to the Austrian Academy of Sciences. So Yvonne, what's the weather like in Vienna?
Hello, nice to meet you. Oh, the weather is nice today. It's actually blue sky, a bit cloudy, but very, very cold, similar to Katarina.
Okay, thank you. And then last but not least, Alenka Korendiak. She's an architect working at Prostorods, which is a non-profit cultural association aiming to improve public urban spaces. And you're based in Ljubljana in Slovenia. Alenka?
Yes. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, Katarina. Hi, Yvonne. Yeah, the weather in Ljubljana is something in between.
Okay.
Cold, but just sun came out right now. But in order to get people out in that kind of weather, we are just today building a heating bench and like the pilot project in Ljubljana to start designing a bench. It would be heated,
so it's an outdoor bench where you can
so
sit
the
down.
weather
And
could not be excused then after.
okay. Of course, I think we first need to define what we are talking about. So what is a public space according to you? So Alenka, how would you define a public space?
Yeah, I would say that this is, like you said already, the place where all people can attend, can feel comfortable, and also when the people in this place can co-design the place. But then I ask myself, like, what are these measures, or what are, because we are architects or planners, what are our tools to enable this? And to enable, and also what are the principles that we can work like this, that the places would be for all the people, and also that all can co-design them.
Yes, right. So let's move to Yvonne. How would you define a public space?
Well, also I'd like to start with a general idea or definition, if you want so. So it's an open space providing all sorts of options for appropriation. Well, and similar to Alenka, I'm looking at public spaces as a geographer, so I'm interested in, let's say, the spatial impact of public spaces. Why do we need them in neighborhoods, in the built environment? And that's why I'd like to add this idea of public space as a compensation space for social interaction.
Okay, thank you. And Katarina, how about you? How would you define a public place?
Yes, so I would define it also as it is defined generally, that it's public space who is used by all of us. So all social groups. But I think there is a big diversity in public spaces. So it is not so much necessary to have the same public spaces and used at the same time by all of us, because some public spaces are more for children, some more for older people, and so on. So there is a big diversity, but in general, we need, as planners or architects or city officials, we need to pursue the idea to ensure the accessibility of public spaces to all.
Yes.
And to do the diversity of public spaces, to have the attractiveness for all.
Yeah.
Of public spaces. Yes.
We asked the three of you to choose one interesting example of public space development where different stakeholders have been working together to develop those spaces. Would you like to start, Katarina? Which example have you chosen? And also why you did choose this one?
Yes, me or?
Yeah, Katarina, yes, please.
Yes, I have also some pictures, but I don't know whether they are available. Yes.
They are right before you.
Yes. So I have chosen the example from Nitra. It's a small town in Slovakia, and it's the public space which was created recently, and it was created at the unused site in the city, neglected and deteriorated, unused. And it was created by civic activists. So it offers, for example, community gardens, arena for concerts, or I don't know, parkour or jumping or skate park, and many this I would say leisure and recreation spaces, and it is open to all. Usually we see that for example, community gardens are used only by a group of people, but in this space anybody can enter the space and yes, use it. And it is very, it was a specific type of public space which previously was not in Nitra. So because we have streets, we have squares, we have parks, but this type of public space, it was something which was demanded by citizens of the city. So it is very popular, and people like to visit this space during weekends or during the week to have a rest.
And this was started by citizens initiating, developing this into a park, right?
Yes, and it was developed not by the city or by the city officials or government, but by the civic initiative from bottom up. So the initiator of the space is now a mayor of the city in Nitra, because people really acknowledged that there are people, civic activists, who care about spaces and who are able to organize and realize this idea or their ideas of improvements of public spaces.
Okay.
Yes, and it is called Hyde Park, so you can hide there, use the space to hide.
That's a nice name. So let's
Yes.
move over to Yvonne and to Vienna and look at the Donau Canal, the channel within Donau, the Donau channel in central Vienna. Would you like to tell us why you choose this very example?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have chosen Donau Canal, or in English Danube Canal, which is the waterfront area along Danube Canal. So not Danube River, but Danube Canal. And that is in the very central part of the city of Vienna. The Danube Canal stretches several kilometers alongside the inner city districts. And what is interesting is the question of ownership. The ownership of that public space, I mean, it's kind of contradictory to speak about ownership when it comes to public space. It should be clear who is the owner. But in this case, it's quite complex in the regard that it's a joint venture of the Republic of Austria, the province of Lower Austria, and the city of Vienna. And all three share certain responsibilities. And nevertheless, although this ownership is quite complex, that space is very important for citizens and visitors in Vienna. So as you can imagine, as you see it here on that slide, the city is very much built up, very dense. It's a growing city, so more and more people are moving into the city area. That means public spaces become quite contested and quite rare. So Danube Canal is a space of manifold uses. You can use it for leisure, for recreation, gastronomy during daytime, but also there's a lively nightlife. For culture, maybe you go back one slide and I jump to the third picture in a second. It's also a very important cultural space with many festivals taking place here. Now our complex Danube Canal is going crazy with the pictures. So it's a space for all sorts of formal and let's say regulated, but also informal use. You cannot see it here on these pictures, but it's also a place for fishing, for subcultural culture uses. It's also a shelter for homeless people. So, however, that space is very important. We are facing right now a shift or a transformation towards a privatization of that space, mostly related to the use of gastronomy and the adjacent open spaces to the gastronomy. So we can move to the last picture, to the third one. That is why I basically come up with this idea of how to create, actually, how to think about and how to create and ensure inclusive spaces. As such, the Danube Canal or Duma Canal is an example to discuss these characteristics, and it's, in my opinion, not only about the function and the diverging needs of people using the space, but it's also a question of consumption and our question to ourselves, how much we would like to commercialize public spaces. It's a question of appropriation, so this balance between formal strategies but also informal tactics, and how to ensure these spaces of diversity and for diversity. And last but not least, because it's the most challenging part, is the question of governance. So how to ensure inclusiveness, although we basically speak about a public-private partnership in this example.
That's very interesting, and we look forward to discuss this further. Maybe we should move over to Slovenia to have just one more example from Alenka. I know you've also chosen a park. Would you like to tell a bit more about that example?
Yeah, I would talk about the district of Tabor, which is the part of the district of the city center of Ljubljana. And I will also start a bit maybe describing, I'm a part of an NGO, so we were initiator of the activities that I will present, and at the end I will also present the results that were done after 4 years of activities in the park and in the district. What we started with a sociological survey, which showed that the people of, because like the district is a part of a city center. It's really densely built. It has a small green area, a really nice park. You can see it on this picture. But nevertheless, at that time, the park was like it is now, or like it is in this picture. What people stated in the survey, that there are no public spaces in the district Tabor, that they don't have enough green spaces, and that nothing is going on in the district of Tabor. And also, when we asked specifically, what about Park Tabor, they were afraid going there because it was neglected. So how do we start it? We started with an initiative, like we gather with what's on the picture, a huge carpet, where we drew the plan and we collected wishes initiatives from inhabitants. And there was one surprise, which was that it was like almost third of these initiatives from inhabitants were about activities, and they were not about physical stuff. So how we started, what was, you can go to the next slide, please.
Just a moment.
It means, so we were, when we started, okay, it's, I can talk, yeah. So actually what we did, we developed a program for 4 years on three different levels. Of course, there were some small interventions needed. We put some more lights because it was too dark, but this was New Year's. Everything was really temporary and low budget. So an info point, we put some flowers in some flower beds, some small interventions making people easier to use the space. Then the second part was a program, was a garage sale. We had library under the trees, yoga, sport events, sharing days. I speak about maybe 30 to 40 events per year. But some of them, they had 10 people, some of them 50 people. It was not overcrowded, but yeah, on certain day it was, but mostly not. So then the third one, the third point was because, we can stay the second slide, please. Yeah. The third series of activities, they were about infrastructure in the whole district of Tabor. During the 4 years, we were trying to gather some funding, some discussing with the city. So over the 4 years, 2 new playgrounds were renovated. Traffic regime was regulated in the way that the cars are not possible to enter in the park. And one new event, yearly event with all the stakeholders in the neighborhood was established, which is Neighborhood Day. We did some art installations over the whole neighborhood. And here I also have to say, like Ivone was telling about the ownership, it's important issue also in Slovenia. And this, especially this park, which is the only green area in the district, it belongs to the sport community. So the sport association, and it's in private hands. These sport associations, they are nice, but and they don't want to close the space, but if they would follow the rules of the city, they would be able to put the fence around and close the space. And on the other hand, the city would be just able, they are maybe closing eyes a bit and maintaining twice a year this place. Otherwise, they would not maintain it. And there is no official agreement on the legal issues about this state. So we can go to the last slide, which is about, after 4 years, we did another survey, we did some round tables. At the end, we were checking about what kind of difference did it make these 4 years. And what we can say about the quarter, it's surely that a lot of different groups of people started to use the space. Maybe some drug addicts, they were there at the beginning and they are still now there. It's not that somebody told them to go, but just a lot of different groups came. So none of these groups felt uncomfortable because of this. Again, we didn't do, the trees were already there, as you see, long time before, but now people notice them, and they started to perceive the place as a central place of this quarter. And also this development of Tabor identity, it was important because before it was perceived as a city center, just old people remembered maybe that they were in this district, but I guess at the end, like also older people know, okay, this is a Tabor district. Okay. Then I could also say on the city level, because we started with really initiatives that were really simple, like garage sales, these activities meant encouragement to other districts in Ljubljana or to other small groups, because they saw it's easy to start in their own quarter, in their own neighborhood, doing the same things. And also like this project became a pilot project for other cities. We are at the moment advising 4 or 5 different cities, also on a basis of another project in another neighborhood in Ljubljana, but it was perceived as a positive case.
Okay.
Yeah, so
thank you so much. These are three different examples, but I guess they all have in common that you have really succeeded in attracting various groups. So it's really a true mix of different citizen groups that are using the place. I would like to ask you all that are participating in this webinar we would try to do another poll about which groups that are actually using the public spaces in your nearest neighborhood where you live, the public spaces in your city. Who do you spot? So this is a multiple choice question. Which groups are using the public spaces close to where you live most? Would it be boys, girls, women, men, elderly people, street artists, young people generally speaking, families generally speaking, or maybe homeless people? As you see, this is a multiple choice question, so you can tick more boxes if you like. So I invite you all to fill out which groups are using the public spaces in your neighborhood? So let's see, the results are coming in. And of course, you panelists are also invited to fill in the boxes. Yeah, I think we can take a look at the results now. Okay, so young people, generally speaking, and families in general are the most common answer here. And then we also have elderly people. And then boys and men more than girls and women. Not so much homeless people, especially not street artists. Interesting. Thank you so much for contributing. There was also an interesting comment before in the chat about how we define public spaces. Manila, I'm not sure how to pronounce your family name, says, I think that public spaces are defined by the sense of belonging citizens feel for and in them. They are part of urban context in a wider sense, not only spaces. They tell a story. Would you agree with that, your panelists, with that comment? And I would also like to welcome everyone to join the conversation now. You can just raise your hand if you wish to be featured on video, or you send more comments using the chat. Okay, so we talked about the definition of urban spaces, and I would like to throw in also another question. So who is usually missing in public spaces, apart from those street artists we just realized through the poll? So who might we tend to forget about, and why is that?
Maybe I could add that since we were active it's in Ljubljana, but we were active in this neighborhood that I described, but also in another neighborhood which is a socialist neighborhood, and it's not in the city center. And I could say that the public was totally different. So for me, it's really hard to tell, like, for all the public spaces, who are we missing? Because I think that, like, in this neighborhood on the outskirts of Ljubljana, the places were public spaces. It's not a question that they were not, but there were not foreign visitors, for example, or there were no tourists. There were, when we did events there, or when we had a picnic, it was more people from the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And we felt, and also the people from neighborhood felt, that this is the right thing. But when you do such, like, when you are active in a city center, we had also tourists, we had also like passers-by, or the people that came from different neighborhoods to visit these events. And so I think it's more, we were trying, with all the projects, we are really trying to leave it open and that everybody feels comfortable. But who is then everybody? And then are we really expecting that all the people would come, or are we just trying to enable everybody that want to, that are then invited, that feel invited? Yes.
Okay. So more comments and ideas on this question of are there certain groups that we tend to forget about, and then also maybe some solutions, techniques, means of include all those groups too.
I would say,
Please go ahead, Katarina.
Yes. Generally, we miss in public spaces those people who are in certain aspect disabled. So, for example, disabled people or also elderly people. And that is why also design of these public spaces should focus on inclusion of those people and to design the people to be the public spaces to be accessible for these sort of groups. And probably sometimes there are also some tendencies to exclude some groups of people from public space. So yeah.
There's a comment on the chat too about active working people, especially in new business areas.
Yes,
where there's
example,
not enough for public interaction outside of those business office areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, for example, also like interaction of cyclists and pedestrians. So,
yes.
So we need to think about the design of spaces, how to design the spaces to fit for all those interest groups or users of the space.
Yeah. So if I reframe the question a bit, I could ask you all to reflect on how is the publicness in public spaces produced? How do you ensure that?
Yes, we have somehow or use the space not to harm the others or to reflect the needs of others. So, for example, if we have cyclists and pedestrians in one space, we need to be tolerant and respectful for the needs of others.
Right.
And yeah, so it could appear in the spaces that it is also difficult to manage the different uses of the space.
Yes. May I ask Yvonne, how is publicness in public spaces produced according to you?
Yeah, also listening to Alenka and Katarina and also the comments on the chat, I think there is no general answer to that. So I think it's really a matter of contextuality, so the local context and what can be improved in this specific context. So when we talk about a residential area, the publicness in the residential area is a completely different one to a inner city public space where it is more about representation, maybe also about values of democracy, for instance. If you think about these really huge, important spaces in most of European cities, those are spaces for democracy and democratic participation. So I think this is a very sensitive topic, the publicness in public spaces, and it requires a very differentiated understanding of the specific context.
Yes. Maybe we should, we're talking a lot about how to include people. Maybe we should just listen to one ordinary citizen. We have a very small video clip from Bucharest. So that's a citizen, I think his name is Alex Dino. Maybe we just listen to him for a short while.
I like spending time outdoor in Bucharest, especially when the weather is good in spring or summer. But unfortunately, we don't have enough terraces or outdoor bars or gardens where we can hang out. And I know this is due to the fact that it's pretty complicated to open, for example, a terrace in the city center of Bucharest, because the legislation is pretty complicated. And I think a solution it would be to have a more relaxed legal framework to open these kinds of places.
Okay, so this was Alex Dino from Bucharest. So he's talking about that there are regulations and laws that prevent the citizens to get what they want in terms of public spaces. You were also, Yvonne, talking about in Vienna, those constraints between the commercial actors, the city officials, and then all the people that would like to use this canal. site. What could you say about those conflicting interests?
Yeah, it's really a matter of balancing power, and power is very much related to who's visible and who does have a say in these negotiation processes. So it's not only about the public actors and the commercial owners of in our case, the gastronomy. It's more about the power of people. So how do they organize themselves in order to become a visible voice? There are various reactions. You could also take these informal tactics like graffiti or using the space as a gathering point for protests, or a civic association as a, let's say, organized form of citizens' power. But it's really a matter of everyone needs to become involved in that. Otherwise, we will miss some actors, and the publicness is not anymore represented by a true public variety.
Yeah, so let's dig a bit deeper, and I'll also invite all the participants and the other panelists. So what kind of techniques are there to ensure that get all those citizens involved, actually not only having their say, but also really engage and affect what's happening in public spaces? Do we have any best practices to share?
Yes.
Alenka?
Yeah, maybe I could add that. Yeah, I would say that when the city municipalities, we have a lot of rules. So when inhabitants that are not like inhabitants of the city that would like to participate, they feel afraid, they don't understand all these legislations, they don't know why is something like it is. So I think this communication, it's really, really important, because else then when we communicate why some things are like they are, and also in Slovenia when we have this issue of ownership that nobody really understands, it's hard to even expect that the people would participate. So I could say this is maybe for our country, that we are at the state when the cities are really trying, or some of them, they are aware of this. And some cities in Slovenia, they're already trying hard, but like explaining all the rules, going to the outside to the people, talking with people, and then we can, and doing a lot of projects on the side, being active on the side. And also I think when we can assure this publicness, when we leave processes open.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever is the matter, that's like, it's when it's about the renovation of a traffic system, of renovation of the public space, or renovation of the park, it's always like everything is agreed already 10 years ago, the plans are done, and then where is this space for participation? So this is exclusively for my country, and I think a lot of our efforts of a few NGOs in Slovenia, we are working on this, opening these processes and trying to work with municipalities, because we are more flexible than municipalities are, and in this collaboration I can see like something that could work maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can we have examples from other countries?
Yes, I would like to give example from Slovakia.
Mm-hmm.
And we also in recent period, we have seen the big activism of civic societies or associations to improve public spaces, because in some extent it is that municipalities who are in fact responsible or could act as mediator for public spaces didn't fulfill this role. So civic association took over these activities to improve the public spaces. And for example, we have seen the initiative Urban Interventions, which was initiative initiated by architect Matúš Valo first in Bratislava, and it was like something like collection of ideas, very yes, just concepts to improve the public spaces. Very simple, for example, which the showed the public space before and after the improvement. And this initiative, it was interesting, it spread in other cities in Slovakia and also abroad in Czech Republic. And it had a big response from citizens, and published by media, by also the book, the printed book was issued. So it showed that people are really interested in public spaces, and that there is a big potential of activism in public space. Yes. But I don't know whether and it was reflected also now, recently, when there was elections to municipal councils and elections for mayors, that these activists who were active in these initiatives, they were elected as mayors. For example, in Nitra, the founder of the Hyde Park, only 31 years old, mayor was elected as a mayor. So people really acknowledge, appreciate these initiatives, and also they want the cities to take over the responsibilities, and that's why they elected those people to the local councils and to the municipal governments. So they expect their initiative from the municipal level also.
Yes. So we're talking about urban dilemmas. That's the overall headline for those webinars. And I was wondering, why is this inclusiveness or say livability often a dilemma when talking about public spaces? Maybe we should move over to Yvonne.
Could you just repeat the question, because
yes,
I was missing the...
Sorry. So I was wondering why this inclusiveness or livability, we could say, is often a dilemma when talking about public spaces.
Well, because it's a dilemma to perceive the public space as being a truly inclusive space. Because whenever you include a certain group or a certain interest, you're missing out another group. Or neglecting another need. So I think it's also a discussion point. How do we conceptualize inclusiveness, and how are we going to deal with the dilemma that we are always having the challenge that we cannot make everyone happy in the public space. But I think we need a reconfiguration in these debates by putting or bringing the citizens and the users of public space into the core debate, and not the legal framework, and not the design, and not, you know, how many public spaces are available or not. It's truly, this is the space for people. And this should be in the center of the debate, in my opinion. The dilemma might still exist, but probably they shift in a certain, and into a different direction.
Yeah. Alenka, would you like to add on that?
Yeah, I would just continue, because like from planning point of view, it's also public space a lot of time perceived as a leisure space, and I think it's not a leisure, like just continuing Yvonne's thought. It's not, it's a space for people, so, and it's a space for life. And like it's when they were like public spaces are livable when the kids can walk to school, and not when we have benches or when we have sidewalks. So I think when we are thinking through the planning process, already this is wrong, because this planning process, we had the zoning, we have the like areas for traffic, areas for greenery, areas, and we have so many prescriptions here. Then we exclude right at the beginning some groups of people with these sentences. So yeah, I think we should say that, yeah, also in the planning and in architecture, we have to say that livability is, the public spaces are for life, not for leisure.
Yeah. There's an interesting comment or question from Marilisa in Rome. Maybe you can all read it from the chat. If a public space attracts private economical interests, is it still a public space then?
Yeah. Or if public spaces, as in Ljubljana, are in private ownership, is it still a public space?
At least we have the proxy of semi-public or semi-private space.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a bit curious. Maybe we should launch our last poll for the seminar. That's a question about how livable you consider your city to be. So livable, do you understand that expression? How would you define livable, Alenka?
Yeah, just with the sentence that I said before, when the kids can walk to school, or when old people have a place to short and long walks and places to sit, and when people have the opportunity to meet on the street, and also to build a tolerance among each other. And this, I think, and also when, I don't know, then it comes greenery and short ways and parks, but before it has to be comfortable for everybody to be able to meet them and to build. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yvonne, do you agree with that?
Completely. And livability is a truly individual definition. So I would also add that there is not the one livability for everyone.
Right. So
yes, I would add that there are some aspects which are basic, that healthy, or we don't want too much noise, too much pollution, or these kind of things and then became this attractiveness or other levels of the livability.
Okay.
Thanks.
So let's ask you all participants how livable you consider your city to be, the city where you live, that is. How livable is it? So let's fill in the question. I'm ready. We'll wait for a short while and then we take a look at the results. So let's take a look how livable your home cities are. Oh, that's good. Almost 2/3 consider your own city to be very livable. That's a good result. And even 1/10 says extremely livable. And no one finds it not at all livable. That's, I think we're lucky there, right? Thank you so much. I see that not too many minutes left, so let's try to summarize and conclude what has been said. I would like to ask the panelists about your takeaways, what you bring home, what you can make use of yourself, but also things that have been said that we should all maybe consider, all participants. And I would invite you all to use the chat to tell each other what you learned or new ideas or perspective you gain. Maybe something you would like to do next, following up on what's been said here today. But to conclude, let's say 1 minute each, what are the conclusions for you, Alenka?
I would say that these debates are long debates. We should do them more time. We should debate more about this, and even in larger circles. So, and I one reflection. I like this kind of formats also. So, thank you for inviting me.
Okay, thank you. Yvonne, what would be things that you bring with you in your work, or
Mm-hmm.
new ideas that emerged?
I take away a reconfirmation that we really need to think about the publicness and how to ensure participation. And participation does not only mean to be actively involved. In my opinion, it's also the use of public spaces already one sort of participation. And I'd like to refer to one comment in the chat with regard to digital space. I think this is something we are missing in our discussions, and that really needs proper proper involvement in future discussions, because we have to ask ourselves how our digital life and our consumption of social media is impacting actually the real public space. Do we need them anymore? Because we interact with each other much more often and much regularly in the virtual space. Or is there actually an increasing demand for real life public spaces due to this relation? So I take away, don't forget about digital life.
Right.
Yes.
Moving over to Katarina.
Yes, probably I will refer to Yvonne, that sometimes it seems that the virtual public space will result in the decrease of the use of real public space. But I have also these examples from Nitra, the Hyde Park, or the urban interventions, that these initiatives to improve the public spaces were very much initiated through this virtual public space, that people who don't know each other personally, they come together and they create the public spaces and co-create and participate. So this virtual space enables us to participate with many actors, many groups, to be helpful to improve the real urban space.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to all our three panelists, and also to the co-moderator, Caroline, and to all participants for your active contributions and also using the chats. So the results from the discussion today, some key messages will be compiled and distributed to you all. And the materials will, of course, also be available on the website of UPI Urban Europe. And you will find also a recording of this webinar if you'd like to listen afterwards, or recommend your colleagues to do so. The chat room will stay open for another 50 minutes. If you want to share some ideas or just interact with the others, ask questions. You are all very welcome to join the next webinar, the next Urban Lunch Talk, which will take place already next Friday. And actually the topic will be what you are asking about, digital transitions and urban governance. So the digitalization, how does it affect the development of urban places, urban spaces? And as today, the webinar, the Urban Lunch Talk next week will start at 13 hours CET and ends at 14 hours. So I say thank you to all of you, and I hope to meet you all soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.